Good afternoon, Your Excellencies, dear ladies and gentlemen. I would like to warmly welcome you to this kick-off event of the report on the future of Finland-Estonia cooperation. Thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Sini Kukkasaari, and I work as a Senior Research Fellow at the Finnish Institute of International Affairs. I will be moderating this event together with my dear colleague, the Director of Estonian Foreign Policy Institute, Dr. Kristi Raik. Kristi, over to you.
Thank you very much, Sinikukka. Good afternoon also from the Estonian side, and welcome to our distinguished speakers and audience to discuss the future of Estonian-Finnish relations. Tere tulemast, tervetuloa. We are starting the preparations of the new visionary report on our relations at a strange and difficult moment because of the pandemic. We cannot be physically together. But I do hope that actually the COVID restrictions have helped us realize how important the relationship between Estonia and Finland is for our countries and our societies. This is something that perhaps otherwise we take for granted. Now I have a couple of technical remarks. First of all, this event is recorded and it can be watched afterwards at YouTube. And secondly, to our audience, please, you are encouraged to pose questions and comments to the Facebook comment section. And we moderators will do our best then to pick up the questions later on during the discussion. Now back to you, Sinikukka.
Thank you. It is now my great pleasure to introduce today's speakers from the Finnish side. We have with us today the Minister for Foreign Affairs of Finland, Mr. Pekka Haavisto, and his opening words will be followed by the presentation of the rapporteur of this visionary report, Ms. Anne-Mari Virolainen. Ms. Virolainen is member of the Finnish Parliament and former Minister for Foreign Trade and Development. Kristi, could you kindly introduce the Estonian side, please?
Yes, on the Estonian side, I am very happy to introduce our Minister of Foreign Affairs, Eva-Maria Liimets, who has been in office for just over 1 month, but of course she has already visited Finland. And our rapporteur on the Estonian side is Mr. Jaak Aaviksoo, who is former Minister of Defense and Minister of Education and Research, and has also made an academic career in the field of physics. Now I'm happy to give the word to Minister Liimets, please.
Dear Minister Haavisto, distinguished rapporteurs, dear ladies and gentlemen watching the event online on both sides of the Gulf of Finland, I am deeply honored to be part of today's kick-off event of this special project. The Prime Ministers of Estonia and Finland, at their meeting on the 19th of February in Helsinki, launched the process of putting together the third visionary report. Today we are officially and symbolically kicking off the process of all together with all the main players. We have two well-known eminent rapporteurs, Ms. Anne-Mari Virolainen and Mr. Jaak Aaviksoo. They will be leading the process with the professional support of foreign policy institutes and embassies. There is no need for a long introduction about our bilateral relations. It is common knowledge that Estonia and Finland are like-minded partners bilaterally, regionally, in the EU and in multilateral organizations. Our cross-sectoral intertwined cooperation has been vivid and effective at all levels throughout the history of our countries. Today we are united through cross-border data exchange, S-Link power cables, Baltic-Connector gas transmission pipeline, people-to-people and business contacts. In 2018, our countries' governments held a joint session together. Last June, we celebrated 100th anniversary of our diplomatic relations. Let me let me remind that Finland was the first country that recognized Estonia de jure. So one may ask, if so many excellent things are already happening between our countries, why do we need a visionary report on our cooperation? The answer here is simple. We do work on many issues on a daily basis, and we are united in common global challenges that we seek to tackle together. However, now and then it is useful to take a moment to zoom out, to try and map our cooperation from a new, fresh perspective. We want to look at where we currently stand, what we have achieved, and where we want to be in the future. Let me quote here Prime Minister Kallas why she was visiting Helsinki. Friendship and trust and close cooperation between our countries constantly inspire us to find new forms and goals of cooperation. Indeed, due bilateral cooperation reports have been compiled previously, mapping untapped potential and giving recommendations for the governments. I would here like to recognize and thank previous rapporteurs, first Mr. Jaak Jörud and Mr. Esko Ollila, who put together the first report evaluating the status of relations between the states just before Estonia joined the EU in 2004. The second report by co-rapporteurs Mr. Jakob Lundberg and Mr. Gunnar Ock analyzed how Estonia and Finland could address the challenges of globalization. Both reports have been extremely valuable with their findings and visionary recommendations. Today we have another important milestone to look forward to. The aim of that third report is to visualize the future of our country's cooperation. I invite the rapporteurs to highlight new ways to generate responses in a dynamic world we live in. By this, I mean not only high-level visits or institutional cooperation, but also grassroots activities and new initiatives among a wide range of societal groups. One area could be also how to improve our citizens' lives through the smart engagement of future technologies. Or how could we together create more resilience in the context of new challenges, such as post-COVID economic recovery. With these fruit of thoughts, I would like to thank our independent co-authors, Mr. Jaak Aaviksoo and Ms. Anne-Mari Virolainen, for stepping in to assume this important task. As today's event is directed to public, I would like to encourage also all viewers to present all their proposals and keywords which should be taken into account during this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Liimets, for your encouraging words. I now invite Minister Haavisto to take the floor. Please.
Thank you, Sinikukka, and dear listeners and viewers of this launching moment. First of all, I'm pleased to be here together with my good colleague Eeva-Maria Liimets through virtually. We met with Eeva-Maria already in Helsinki when she visited as a new minister Finland, but we have also met in Brussels with the Foreign Affairs Council. And of course, I'm very pleased that the prime ministers also visited Helsinki and had the opportunity to launch this visionary work. And let me also thank our excellent rapporteurs, eminent co-authors, Anne-Mari Virolainen, my good colleague and old friend from the Finnish Parliament, and very experienced Jaak Aaviksoo, who is also online. Of course, we have a lot of expectations to your work. But also the representatives of the Foreign Policy Institutes of Finland and Estonia, Sinikukka Saari and Kristi Raik, also very experienced persons on Finnish-Estonian cooperation. Of course, it's needless to say that relations between Finland and Estonia are very good and close, and there is cooperation in different fields at many levels. Also, through rough times, as the pandemic that we are experiencing at the moment, our cooperation works and our contacts are close. The challenging times have emphasized the importance of good neighbors. It's very timely to draft a visionary report on Finland-Estonia future cooperation. We have recently celebrated the 100th anniversary of both of our countries as well as of our diplomatic relations. I had an opportunity last year to visit Estonia when the celebration of Tartu agreements took place, and while I was traveling, I was reading old memoirs of Väinö Tanner, who underlined how friendly the atmosphere in Estonia was, and I think this friendliness have maintained for 100 years between our nations. It's useful to sit back with close friends and look at the future. It's time to think together. What more could we do together? What kind of new synergies could be found? What kind of relations do we want to see a decade or decades from now? And very important themes of the report that I would like to mention, of course, is culture, education, science and innovation, trade and economy, resilience of our societies, environment and climate, and connections between cities, between people, energy, transport, and so on. To get a broad perspective and many views, let's include different generations, also young people, and different sectors in the societies in the process of drafting the report. The process can be very fruitful and valuable in itself. During it, we have the possibility to talk about new ideas and further them together. Maybe some of the particular concrete examples that we already have in our bilateral cooperation, I would like to mention the Baltic Connector gas pipeline between our countries, which was opened in December 2019. This allows for a regional gas market. And of course, during the pandemic, border guards from both countries have given advice to travelers in both Helsinki and Tallinn. We have also many Finnish-Estonian movie co-productions have been concluded in recent years. Finnish-Estonian Cultural Fund, which is, by the way, one of the results of this kind of brainstorming, has given out cultural scholarships since 2017. I'm looking forward to having this report done and to the results it will bring, and this very visionary report, very visionary work for you who are now taking part of this. And I hope that this is a wide variety of in our societies that are supporting this work. Best luck to this work. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Haavisto. Now I would like to invite Rapporteur Virolainen to take the floor. Please share us your vision.
Thank you, Sinikukka. Honorable Ministers, Your Excellencies, dear Jarkko, ladies and gentlemen. Actually, this is a very fascinating moment for me to be part of this excellent team for preparing a visionary report for our countries. I would like to underline the word visionary. Our ambition level is very high, and I believe that together with many enthusiastic people from different interest groups, it is possible to find the path to a fresh vision. I also encourage us all for out-of-the-box thinking. That might be a challenging one, but we'll see what will happen. And luckily, we do not start from the scratch. There are 2 previous reports, present cooperation in many different fields, interlinked economies, etc. As Ministers Limets and Haavisto already mentioned, our bilateral relations are good, both on the governmental and personal level. Our trade is growing, but we also need to bear in mind that we are small countries, we speak fairly rare languages, we both have aging population, and at the same time, global competition is getting harder. As we want to be global players, it would be easier if we join our forces, if we join our brains. I'm sure we have visions and ideas how this region could be more competitive. How could we provide even better education? How could we tempt more international students to our universities? How could we make our business environment more attractive for startups and other innovative companies? How could we get more investors, venture capitalists to invest in our region and ideas? How business could be called in for a more comprehensive and inclusive ways to bring about our mutual aims. There will be more questions and there will certainly be more answers. In the report, we will identify those criteria that are pull factors to get the most talented people to come our region and also to get most talented people to stay here. That is why it is crucial that we talk to young people and get to know how next generation thinks about education, work, culture, nature, security, for example. We must understand how young people who were born global, how they see the future. The world is really open for them and full of different options and opportunities. We co-rapporteurs, Jaak and I, we have already drafted a roadmap how to proceed, and of course we have taken into consideration the COVID situation. This spring is about the interviews and formation of the focus teams, brainstorming sessions, and also formation of the architecture of the report. We have also planned to have discussions in Arvamus Festival and Suomi Arena, but it remains to be seen in what format they will be organized. So I'm looking very much forward to foster our good cooperation further. Let us make it a success for us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Virolainen, for your ambitious approach. Now I am happy to turn to the Estonian rapporteur, Mr. Aaviksoo. What are your expectations? What can be achieved with this new visionary report, please?
Thank you, Christy. Expectations are high, but I start a little bit more formally. Honourable Ministers, dear Anna-Mari, dear ladies and gentlemen, near and far. My first visit to Finland took place 53 years ago as a member of the victorious student team of once famous Naaburivisa contest. It happened soon after the legendary visit of President Urho Kaleva Kekkonen to Estonia and Tartu, which I had eyewitnessed 4 years before. Both these events were impossible to forget. The first injected hope, and the second nourished my dreams throughout the years to come. And I know from this experience that dreams come true, provided you believe in them, strive for them, and deliver to make them happen. And it all starts from a vision. Any vision is much stronger when it's shared, and even stronger when it's a joint vision. What we are kicking off today is exactly creating such a joint vision. We have discussed with Anna-Mari that we may try, in addition to more regular ideas, while proceeding from the vast body of existing and emerging joint undertakings, to identify some 4 to 6 highlighted avenues, ideas which may help to raise our eyes to the horizon and beyond, and inspire many of us to dream about the unbelievable. I like to explore the digital highway. Building our digital futures is building a more humane and friendly society, transparent, supportive, just, green, sustainable, which reaches seamlessly across our national border. Think about talking in everyday language to a mic in Estonian or Finnish, talk to our governments, ask questions, and get answers to all possible questions we may have from all agencies, be they in Estonia or Finland, getting these answers in real time and corresponding to our needs and expectations. This, of course, means technology, data science, artificial intelligence, deep learning, machine language, automated translation, cryptography, blockchain, you just name, a lot more. But it also requires trust and confidence and goodwill. And I'm sure we don't lack none of those. But if we succeed, and I believe we do, This is not only something for our citizens to use and enjoy, but it's also showing a way forward to our partners in the European Union and beyond. I would like to conclude by thanking our governments and ministers for the trust they have vested in me and Anne-Marie as rapporteurs, and use this opportunity to reach out to all interested parties who might contribute to this effort. Your input is highly welcome. I'm looking forward to an inspiring, enjoyable, and hopefully fruitful cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Dr. Aaviksoo. I would like to pose a short question to both rapporteurs. You both talked so very encouragingly about opportunities and visions and dreams, but do you see any challenges or possible hurdles in Estonian Finnish cooperation? And if you do, how could we then overcome those hurdles in future? Please, why don't you start, Anne-Marie?
My glass is always half full. So I don't want to see any problems, because as Jaak mentioned, that there is a trust between people, and both ministers also mentioned the trust and the good relationship. So if I can see one obstacle, that could be that there are so many interesting issues that we have difficulties to pick those focal areas we want to focus on. Probably that's the problem I can see.
Thank you very much. What about Dr. Aaviksoo? Would you like to share your thoughts on this point?
Well, I share the view that focusing is very, very important, but there's also another challenge. The world is still much larger than Estonia, Finland, Northern Europe, Scandinavia, European Union. And there is always a temptation to look at big cities and bright lights and great challenges far away. And sometimes you forget about your neighbors, your family. So if we can feel that we are stronger together when we go after these big high seas, then I think that we've done a good job. So let's keep in contact even if we look for big challenges on the global level.
Yes, this is a very important point that we need to find a balance between the local and regional and the global context. And the global context has been mentioned many times, and also a number of priority areas have already been mentioned. So now I would like to ask the rapporteurs to actually say a few more words about how do you see the shared advantages or strengths of Estonia and Finland in the international arena, in the global arena? What makes us strong? What do we need to develop and utilize further together? Digital area, technology was of course mentioned already. Education has been mentioned, resilience has been mentioned. We have this great double city of Helsinki, which is attractive to tourists and businesses, and hopefully even more attractive in the future. So would you share a bit more your initial thoughts on where the report should look at amongst these different priority areas? Mr. Aaviksoo.
Well, I mentioned digital already, and I think some of you may remember that the President Lennart Meri once said that Estonia has to go out and find his own Nokia. What we did is we looked around and created an e-society that I think is something we can share with our partners further away. But one area where we think we've advanced a lot, but the challenges are even bigger, that is education. We are leading in PISA tests. We have excellent performance in higher education. But I think the landscape of education is changing very fast. And the combination of classical education, a quality education on one hand, and the opportunities that modern technologies offer, if we can combine them faster and in a more visionary way than others, I think we've done a good job. And I hope something of that will reach into our report as well.
So digital and education need to be also looked at together. What would you like to add, Mrs. Virolainen?
I don't know if I have much to add, because when I was minister in 2018, I had more than 130 travel days. So I met hundreds of people, and in every discussion, people mentioned the Finnish education. We could have been talking about clean tech or whatever. The education was every time the subject. And if I think about Estonia, so the first thing that comes to my mind is digital. I admire your e-government programs, your e-citizenship, and how you can manage the startup scheme so well. So probably one thing I could add is the business environment. So business environment in our countries should be very flexible, so that we could have more and more worldwide well-known startups.
Thank you to both of you. I would like to share also some of my comments. And first of all, I think I would like to thank both of you of your very bold and future-oriented approach to this project. It is very nice to hear that, and I very much look forward to working with both of you. And I really do share your thinking that it's not really where we are today and what we have done in the past, but it is actually where we want to be. So it's basically a vision to see the potential, what's out there, and how we can realistically get there in, say, 10 to 20 years' time. So what I think will be very important throughout this project of drafting the report and meeting with people and hearing their opinions, I think, is that, you know, we probably need to challenge our conventional ways of thinking and seeing things. For instance, one very typical way of talking about our relations is always to make direct comparisons, how similar or how different we are. And somehow it is presumed that, you know, the similarities are the positive things and the differences are somehow very negative and shouldn't be talked about. But I think that it's high time that we revise this approach. I think it is equally important to value and respect not only the similarities, but also, and perhaps even in particular, our differences. I think, in fact, it is often the differences that really add value to our cooperation and our common approach. And I think differences also encourage us all to think differently and to learn from each other. And I think Anne-Mari Virolainen's comment was really about this, that we can learn something from the way that Estonians do things, and hopefully there is also something that, you know, we are able to share with the Estonians. So I do encourage us to think differently, and I hope that this will be the kind of spirit throughout the project. Respect, trust, and willingness to learn, and willingness to look things from another angle. So, Kristi, please, I invite you to share your thoughts now.
Thank you very much, Sinikukka, and thank you to all the speakers for sharing your initial thoughts thus far. It makes me very encouraged and really thrilled. I am happy to be part in this project. I personally don't have as long history with Finland as Mr. Aaviksoo. I visited Finland for the first time 30 years ago. But if we think for a moment how much has changed in these 30 years and how much positive change we have seen in our region and in the Estonian-Finnish relations, I think this is an encouraging experience and something to build on. Now, of course, this report will look to the future and not to the past. And it's always impossible to predict the future. But I think now that we are at the beginning of this process, we should also stop for a moment to think about how the world is changing around us. Estonia and Finland are both open economies, open societies. We are very interdependent between our two countries, but we are also very much interdependent with the rest of the world. And let me highlight three important trends that constitute the broader framework of the work that we are going to do on the report. First, there is continuing rapid technological change, which has been mentioned many times already. It is only accelerated due to the pandemic. And it's a field where certainly we have strengths and we have many opportunities, but also very hard work is required to remain pioneers. And we need to maintain the freshness and kind of enthusiasm to develop this field further. Secondly, we have the global balance of power changing. And this is bringing along some worrying developments, pressure on the global rules-based order, pressure on our democratic systems. We can sense the tightening great power competition in our regional security environment in different ways. And now both of our countries, Estonia and Finland, are used to and have learned to take security and resilience very seriously. So this is another thing to think about in future, what we can maybe learn from each other and what we can do more also together to be even more resilient and how to adapt to the changes in the international and security environment. And then thirdly, the economy has of course been mentioned many times, and that's an area of opportunities, but we also need to note the global dynamic where we see now pressure on the economic model of liberal open market economy. And we even have inside the European Union discussions about how the EU's trade and industry policies should be revised. There are some voices suggesting somewhat more protectionist approaches, but in the north, the northern member states of the EU, we have had a very clear position defending the openness and transparency and fair competition of the economy. So this is yet another common interest and common area where Estonia and Finland have a lot of potential also in future to work on together. And as a final remark, I want to highlight one specific aspect, now coming back more to the local level, one specific aspect of the Estonian-Finnish connections. Namely, there are tens of thousands of people on both sides of the Gulf of Finland who actually have their life and work on both sides. And this is a huge richness. It's an asset for both countries. I know what I'm talking about. I am one of these people, and I think nobody knows exactly the numbers, but certainly there is a lot of it. Now, during the pandemic, we have seen how challenging crisis situations can be when you have this level of interconnectedness. And it's a challenge to then, in a crisis situation, to manage them and to make sure that the relations still work as smoothly as possible. So this is a lesson learned, I think, from the past year, that keeping up very close contacts is hugely important. It is important in different areas of life, be it border guards, be it trade, transport, health, many issues. And now I come back once again to digitalization. This is certainly further digitalization of our societies certainly has the potential to make life even smoother for those people who work and live on both sides of the Gulf of Finland. But now it is time to open the floor to questions and discussion. I would like to remind the audience that you are encouraged to post questions and comments in Facebook. But now, Sinikukka, will you get started with the questions?
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much, Kristi. I would like to pose a question, the very first question, to both ministers. And it is a kind of combination of two questions. So there's been, on the Facebook page, there was a question about the Tallinn-Helsinki tunnel. But I would like to widen the question a bit more to include other connectivity projects, because I think connectivity is a bit of a buzzword these days. So, dear ministers, do you see that just a buzzword that will pass, or is there something concrete projects that we could develop together, or we need to develop together, that will somehow improve our position in the kind of very competitive world, for example? And perhaps the other side of the question, and also if you would like to address Kristi's points about the changing international environment and the role for Finland and Estonia in this world. I think it would be very interesting to hear your viewpoints on that. So perhaps Minister Haavisto, why don't you start?
Thank you, Sinikukka, and these are good questions. And first on this connectivity and the links between traffic links between Finland and Estonia. Of course, I like also the expression of digital highway, because that then includes also how the information flow is working. But you certainly know that here in Finland we have been very often dreaming about the night train to Berlin, for example, that it's not only a connection between Finland and Estonia, but a route that our countries can be a route also to other destinations. And I think there, for example, the railway connection from Tallinn forward to Central Europe is very essential, and that's of course something that we are following. Then, of course, when we speak about the tunnel and different options for the tunnel, we all know that it's somewhere quite far in the future. Of course, it shouldn't be excluded. Nobody knows how the technologies are developing and possibilities are developing. But of course, at the moment, we have to take care of our regular ferry traffic and possibilities to really also for this pendling between Finland and Estonia. And unfortunately, during the COVID-19 times, we have some restrictions, but whenever we manage to fight this disease, then we should return back to normal as soon as possible. And then on those Finland and Estonia in a changing political environment, this is extremely interesting. We are not now concentrating to security environment so much. So everybody, of course, knows that there are challenges as well. But I think the role that Finland now this year plays as the chair, not only the N5, the Nordic countries, but also the Nordic-Baltic chairmanship, the NB8 chairmanship. This gives us good possibilities to strengthen the Nordic-Baltic family and our internal cooperation. And I think whenever we have met, we feel very familiar in the Nordic-Baltic family. And then another thing I would like to raise up is the Estonia membership in the UN Security Council, because we have had excellent cooperation on many of those topics that Estonia has highlighted as a member of UN Security Council. And for example, there has been excellent area meetings on Belarus issues, for example, and so forth, where we also have participated. So I want to thank Estonia for all those activities, which is more global in their nature and not only regional. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Minister Liimets, please.
Thank you very much for these questions, and I would like to agree with Mr. Haavisto on all the areas what he mentioned. Connections are important, whether they are digital or physical, and I very much agree that they are important and they have connected our countries. And both previous reports emphasize the importance of connectivity, as we remember that in the after the first report we got the S-Link built, and after the second report we had additional digital connections. So why not to think more about the tunnel connection in the third, or in the margins of a third report? Of course, here I give the opportunity, or I don't want to intervene into the details of the rapporteurs, but when we talk about the future, then of course we have to think of new ways of connections as well. I very much would like to thank also Mr. Haavisto for these good words about our cooperation that we have had in broader terms in international organizations, and the Nordic-Baltic cooperation that we have and that we have at the moment under the Finnish presidency is also very important for Estonia, and we are looking forward to new projects and meetings in this year under this framework. And also, of course, Estonia continues to be in the United Nations Security Council until the end of the year, and we continue to be active in this format. And in June we have our presidency, where we have decided to discuss different topics of mutual interests and of mutual security interests, including, for example, cybersecurity or rights of child in arms conflict. And I'm very much looking forward to cooperate also with Finland in this format. Thank you.
Thank you so much to both ministers, and I want to highlight one point from Minister Liimets' remarks, namely, we talk a lot about digitalization, but then the other side of the coin that goes with it is cybersecurity, and that's also an area where we have clear shared interests of Estonia and Finland. But now we have a number of questions and comments that have come in through Facebook. I just want to mention, because several people have raised it from the Finnish side, that in Finland people cannot watch Estonian TV programs for free. So this is just the point. I don't expect you to comment on it now, but I hope the rapporteurs take it with them, and we can address it at a later point. But then another question that I would like to raise now is the issue of young people. We have already identified it as one of the important areas to look at. So I would like to ask our rapporteurs, in particular on the question of facilitating contact between young people. What do you think can be done in the framework of this report and looking to the future? Mr. Aaviksoo, please.
Well, both while I was working at Tartu University as well as Tallinn University of Technology, or TalTech, we had a great and a growing number of Finnish students there. And I think we could even have more. And the same is actually true concerning Estonian students in Finland, in different Finnish universities. But I think, taking into account the number of families moving between Estonia and Finland, we also have a number of school children from both Estonian and Finnish side studying correspondingly in Estonia or Finnish schools. And I think this is an underexplored potential. We might engage those people into different projects that we have launched, be it on business field or public field. And I think we should engage those people with this bilingual and binational backgrounds into these projects. This is clearly one way of addressing our joint problems, basing on those young people who have experience from both sides. And let's find a framework for them to cooperate more as they've done so far.
Thank you, Mrs. Virolainen. How do you see potential to involve young people?
Actually, I fully agree what Jaak just mentioned, but I also want to add student organizations and, for example, sports organizations. They have a lot in common. And not to forget NGOs, non-governmental organizations. They work quite much together. For example, I mentioned only one organization, and that is Rotary clubs. And they organize exchange programs for our young people. Like, I give an example. My daughter went to Taipei to learn Mandarin, and now she studies to be a doctor. So that kind of young people, they have huge opportunities in this world because they know that kind of languages that we only could imagine when we were kids.
Thank you very much. Yes, I think we still have time for a few more questions. There is a question, perhaps this could be addressed at least by Dr. Aaviksoo, because the report from 2008 envisaged Estonian Finnish University, Cross-Gulf University. And so far this hasn't really happened, and I wonder why. Do you think that there is a need for such a university? Would it help, for example, when we are competing from research funding internationally? Could there be any value added to have a new truly cross-Gulf university, cross-border university? Or do you think that basically all those advantages can also be addressed by this kind of more standard structures, just kind of tightening the cooperation between different universities? Thank you.
Well, I think when we look at what has happened in the higher education landscape in the last 20 years, so we see that the importance of institutions is diminishing and the importance of networks and consortia is growing. What I mean by that is maybe the idea that have been there both in Finland, Estonia, also in other countries, concerning mergers of institutions and institutional cooperation. This is being replaced gradually by dynamic networks and consortia that are formed for 3 years, 5 years, and we have a number of good examples, which I think is a modern implementation of the old idea of merging universities, namely the Finest twins, that is twinning TalTech and Aalto University, as well as the city of Helsinki and city of Tallinn. concerning the smart development of a smart city concept, or participation of University of Helsinki and Tartu University together in pan-European networks. So I think we should modify and modernize the concept of cooperation from institutional to more network solutions. And there's a huge potential doing so.
Christy, would you like to pose yet another question?
Well, there are a number of more questions. The time is running out, but let me just raise one more area that is important and we have not been discussing at all thus far, and that is environmental questions. We are having the Gulf of Finland between us, and both of our nations are really fond of our nature and think of environmental issues as highly important. So would Mrs. Virolainen like to comment on how the report would tackle possibly the environmental issues?
Actually, that's environmental issues, they are on the list, because if we want to tackle the climate change, so no question about that, we need to talk also environmental issues.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank all of you for great replies and very good and frank discussion today. I think it's now time for closing words. So I would like to invite Minister Haavisto. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Sinikukka, and I think so many ideas floating in the air that I'm sure that it's going to be a good report, and how you package that everything together. I think that's the challenge. I just want to make reference of some of the issues that already has been raised here. I think, Jaak, you raised excellent experience in Estonia about the e-society. That's something that we are admiring on this side of the Gulf of Finland, what you have been done on that, and the digitalization, what kind of legislation you have, and where we could find model also for us. I think education has been mentioned. I have to confess that I, a couple of years ago, met with the Syrian refugee in Finland who wanted to continue his studies that has been interrupted in Damascus University. And there was a block in all Finnish universities because he didn't have a suitable document. Then he did it through Tallinn University by living in Finland. And I think these individual cases we have where people are, so to say, using our both systems, and we should maybe make these issues as a reference in a way that how do we make it as flexible as possible that cooperation between our countries work. I think the green recovery issue was mentioned by Christy and so forth. Very important environmental issues. Also, what more we could do on the protection of the Baltic Sea through HELCOM and others. Are there some initiatives that Finland and Estonia could do together? Very, very important. You, Anna-Mari, mentioned this importance of business environment, startups, how to pave the way for further startups. And then Christy raised up also the hybrid security, the cyber security issues, again something that we have already cooperation now. I think these are very important. Culture has not been discussed too much, but I really hope that all Finns who have a possibility should visit the Arvo Pärt Center in Estonia. It was for me a real experience. Of course, always been an admirer of her music and so forth, but somehow the mood in the center, very Scandinavian, I would say, in one way, but also having the deep roots in Estonia and Estonian history. We have this kind of issues that we should support together, how the culture is a part of our cooperation as well. Thank you.
Many thanks to you, Minister Haavisto. As we can see, there is no shortage of topics to be studied and discussed. Now it is my pleasure to give the word to Minister Liimets for her closing remarks, please.
Thank you, Kristi. Dear ladies and gentlemen, also first I would like to say thank you, Mr. Haavisto, for this brief summary where you run over all the topics. I very much agree that the topics that you added, like cultural cooperation, is of importance. And it would be really wonderful to see if there is also new avenues to be found in this area as well. I think that now we can be even more confident that the process of the third visionary report is in excellent hands. Where there is a will, there is a way. New ideas are always important seeds for the future. As it has been said today, governments are regularly discussing ongoing activities and setting objectives for new opportunities of collaboration. However, such visionary reports by independent eminent rapporteurs provide us new perspectives and fresh, perhaps even unconventional ideas. The fact that not only different experts from a broad range of areas, including business, youth representatives, will be included in this process is invaluable. I will be looking forward to read the new report next year. I'm sure it will be an extremely useful additional tool for both governments. Let me one more time thank both eminent rapporteurs for taking the lead on this important project, and also let me thank both institutes for international affairs for today's event. Wishing good luck to all engaged. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your encouraging words, Minister Liimets. I would also like to thank warmly all panelists as well as the audience. Thank you all for joining us today and taking part to this event. I would like to also highlight the fact that this is only the kickoff event, and there will be many more opportunities to take part to this process. There will be consultations, and the whole drafting process is really beginning now. So I think that, there will be more events and more opportunities to take part to the process. We really want to make this process as inclusive as possible. And perhaps Kristi would like to add something here.
Thank you, Sinikukka, and of course I want to join you in thanking our distinguished speakers, and also many thanks to the audience, and apologies that we were not able to raise at this discussion all the very good questions and comments that you posted to us. But indeed, this was just the first kickoff event, and there will be many more opportunities to engage with the people who work on the Estonian-Finnish relations, who want to share their visions with us. I want to thank everyone who has been in touch with us already. We can see that there is interest in this process, and there is this sense that it is a very good thing that this report is being prepared. Many people are enthusiastic to be involved. So once again, I look forward to further work on the report together with the rapporteurs and the foreign ministries. I'm sure the foreign policy institutes on both sides will do our best to support this work with our ideas and experience. So thank you to everyone, and stay tuned for our future events. Thank you.